Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Worton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 273. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm talking about changes. I recently, and when I say recently, this is Thursday that I'm recording this, and this all kind of started on Monday. So I recently went through some major changes in my business. I recently made some major changes in my business, and I wanted to talk about that because that's going to affect this podcast and where this podcast is going. So it all started on Monday when I sent out an email to my list. I'd been really silent on my list for a long time. I have found it really difficult to be consistent with sending out emails. I hate to say when I have something to say because it's not like I never have anything to say, but sometimes I will write something like really heartfelt to my list and it gets great response and it's really useful to people, just sharing stuff that's going on for me. And I feel really good about those emails, but I've not been good about doing those consistently. And so oftentimes I'll try to kind of fill in the gaps with like roundup emails of podcast episodes and stuff that's been going on. And I don't know how useful those are, and so I just don't feel drawn to do those. And so there are like weeks of silence for my email list. And then on Monday, I decided to just acknowledge the fact that I'd been silent and give myself permission to not write for a while. So I sent out this email to my list saying, I know I've been silent, but like I'm consciously making the decision to just go silent for a while. And this all kind of came about as a result of a session I had had on Monday morning with my friend Cara Wild. She was facilitating the session. So we were working with her guides and doing some energy healing and that kind of thing. And basically what came up is that I'm not focusing on the number one thing that I've said I was going to focus on this year. So this year was all going to be about like nature and getting outdoors and writing my books. Now, I did release one of my walking books a couple months ago. And that was great. And I have been working on releasing a second edition of my very first business mindset book, Business Beliefs. And that's been going well. I mean, I've expanded it to about 50,000 words, which is a nice length for a nonfiction book. Just sent it to an editor, just got back the comments from the editor, but I've been really not working on it. My heart's not in it. Like my head is in it. My head says, this is a great book. I can make it better. I am making it better. I wanted to release a new edition of the ebook, release a paperback for the first time, and create a workbook for it. And my head was really excited about that because I know it would be useful to people, but my heart just wasn't in it. And I've had this sign on my desk for months, like since almost the beginning of the year, that says, number one priority, tree book. And I haven't been treating the tree book as a number one priority. That was kind of the third book this year that I was going to release. I originally planned to have it out in December and just haven't been making progress on it at all because I've been focusing on the Business Beliefs book, but yet I haven't been focusing that much on it. So it's been really frustrating to me because I haven't been making my writing a priority, which is what I wanted to do this year. So sent out the email to my list, got an overwhelming number of responses from people. I mean, so many people wrote to me saying, good luck with your book. I hope to see you on the other side of this. I hope everything's going well. So many just great emails supporting me in this change. And the next day, I felt the need to write a little bit more about it. So I wrote a blog post about it, talking about what was going on between Monday and Tuesday and how this came about and some of the things that I do know for sure about this new focus and transition. So I'm focusing on my tree book. Going to be focusing more on my nature work, including my walks and other things. Made a bunch of changes to my website. I deleted a bunch of pages, including my Work With Me page. I removed a lot of references to business mindset. I created a new books page for my website that then kind of links from there into my walking books and my mindset books. And that felt really good. It felt like a massive decluttering. I immediately blogged. I wrote this blog post where I was talking about the changes, and then I wrote another blog post talking about some lifestyle changes that I've made in terms of diet and losing weight. I'm going to be blogging about a bunch of random stuff for a while as I move through this transition and get clear on my path forward. But writing is my number one priority for real this time. I'm also going to be focusing on putting energy into my Patreon community, which I'm super excited about. Just doubled the size of the Patreon community this week. And I will be closing down my Facebook group and shifting my community to Patreon. And as I've mentioned before, for the first 10 people that join my Patreon, and we've still got 4 spots left as I record this, I will be giving everyone, no matter what price point you sign up at, I will be giving everyone of the first 10 people all of the bonuses up to the $55 a month level for the first 3 months or until I fill up the first 10 spots, whichever comes later. So if I fill up the last 4 spots this week, I'm still going to give the first 10 people the extra bonuses for the next 3 months. So hope that's clear. I keep changing the terms on this and kind of extending them and making them better just because I'm really excited about Patreon and I really want to give you guys a lot of help and support in there. So excited about Patreon, will be continuing Patreon, and the things I do in there and offer in there will probably be shifting as my focus shifts. So the focus of this podcast will, of course, change. The name of the podcast is definitely going to change. I was brainstorming some titles the other day, I think it was yesterday, when I was chatting with my friend Joanna Hennon. We came up with some ideas that I like, but nothing's quite feeling right yet. I think it's because I'm not super clear on my path forward. So for now, this is still the Business Mindset podcast, but I'm not going to be talking about business as much or at all anymore. I'm still not sure. Mindset is important to me. The mindset work that I do has changed my life. So I will probably still be talking about mindset in some form or another on this podcast. And I will still from time to time be offering mindset sessions with people, but probably only to existing clients, Patreon people, and people on my list. I won't be promoting it on my website. I'll just make some spots open from time to time, because writing is my top priority, even though I love the mindset sessions. So again, I don't know where this is going. I don't know where the podcast is going. I think it's going to be very writing focused, nature focused, perhaps mindset focused. I don't know. We shall see. I really appreciate you listening to this podcast, subscribing to the podcast, and just kind of allowing me to be in your ear every week. So as I'm going through these changes, I want to make sure that the podcast's episodes that I'm putting out are useful and interesting and not just space-filling crap. So in my efforts to make this interesting and useful to you, I also wanted to share what these changes have been like from behind the scenes, because I think this feels really abrupt to people. And I actually did get some messages from people saying, I hope this isn't an impulse decision. Don't do something you're going to regret, that kind of thing. But even though it sounded really impulsive, because I just kind of came out from nowhere and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, boom, 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 announced in different places that stuff's changing. But this really has been going on behind the scenes for quite some time. I think it was on either Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, that I started going through my old journals, particularly my journal from earlier this year. and looking at all the stuff that I had written in there in terms of making changes in my life and making writing a priority. I want to kind of read through some of this. I can't believe I'm reading my journal to you on the podcast. This is a bit personal, but I think it's going to be useful to you because this is my deep inner stuff that I have been writing about and had forgotten about because I didn't take action on it. And I think this all was just kind of bubbling under the surface until it reached the point where, like, now was the time, this week was the time, and it happened. So let me just grab my journal and I'll go through some of the stuff so that you can get an idea of what this was looking like in my head as far back ago as March. So I was writing about change. Become a full-time writer whose books bring in a steady income. I was yearning to have the freedom of being a full-time author whose books provide a substantial income. Because while I do get royalty payments every month, it's not enough to replace other stuff that I do in terms of income streams. So I wrote down what I need to do: write once a week, respect the Fridays, and replace Fridays with another day if something comes up. So I had blocked out Fridays in my calendar to write. And this is in addition to my monthly workcation weekends. So I blocked out Fridays in my calendar to write. And it wasn't happening. I never managed to make it happen. And as I moved through the year, I started listening to this podcast. I think it's a podcast called The 3-Day Work Week. And I was interviewed for this podcast a couple months ago, I think. It hasn't gone live yet, but I will share it with you when it does. But this woman, Caitlin, who does the podcast called The 3-Day Work Week, talks a lot about A-B weeks. So you do, like, for example, she works on her business one week and she works in her business the other week. So one week she's seeing clients, the next week she's doing marketing and sales and content creation. And I loved the idea of that. And so my plan was to do A-B weeks with my business. And that never worked. So I have just put into my calendar to do A-B days. So like one day I'm working on stuff, the next day I'm writing. We're going to see how that works. This is a new thing that I'm going to be trying starting next week, and we'll see how it goes. And again, this is in addition to my monthly workations, because workations are where I get the bulk of my writing done. But since writing is going to be the focus of what I do from now on, once a month workations, that's not going to be enough. So I need to add more things. So I'm adding 2 days a week. We'll see how that goes. I will update you with it because I know a lot of people listening to this are writers or want to be writers or are writing a book or dream of writing a book. So I think it's probably useful for me to talk to you about what works for me, what doesn't work for me, because that may be useful to you. Of course, everyone has their own method of writing. You've got to find what works for you, and I think it does help to hear what works for other people. So those Fridays never happened. Now it's going to be, I think it's Tuesday and Thursday. We'll see how that goes. Next thing I had written down was to release new editions of my top-selling books. So that's my South Downs Way book and my Business Beliefs book. Those are on hold now because the tree book is the number one priority. Like, my gut tells me that, and I know this is the most important book that I need to be working on right now. So I have a bunch of other stuff written here on. As I'm looking through it, I can see it's all come from the head. It's very much head-driven. Like, logically, this is what I want. This is what I need to do. And I think in the back end of things, like, my gut was saying, do the tree book. And it was speaking so loudly that I have this pink piece of paper stuck to my desk lamp that says number one priority tree book. So anyway, I was clear on this stuff as far back as March and April. I'm kind of paging through my journal as I do this. I've got another page where I actually looked at, because this has come up in a session with Cara back in April about kind of quitting my business and quitting the business stuff and quitting the mindset stuff. And on the 16th of April, I have a thing in my journal saying, if I were to formally shut down my business to focus on my writing, what would that look like? And I had a whole list of things to do. Quit this, quit that, change the website, remove Work With Me from the website, rewrite the homepage, rewrite the about page. And I didn't do any of this stuff until this week. And I think for a while, I used this for a while, and I mean like half a day. Once I discovered this week that I had written all this stuff months ago, I used it to feel a little bit bad about myself. I had this clarity months ago, but I didn't take action on it. Why didn't I take action on it? Was I lazy? No, I don't think I was lazy, because I do stuff that's useful and productive all the time. So it's not like I'm just sitting back doing nothing. But I think emotionally, I wasn't ready for it. And I've done so much mindset stuff in the past 5 years, but this year I've done a lot of work on stuff, and I've really made some breakthroughs in some of the personal stuff that I was struggling with in my life. And one of those things, namely, is physical stuff. So if you're interested in the blog post that I wrote, I'll link to it in the show notes about my lifestyle changes and my weight. But two of the things that were really affecting me in my personal life were my weight, because I developed a thyroid problem about 9 years ago, gained a bunch of weight, and have suffered from low energy levels. And I felt so restricted over the last few years because I love to be active, and I am active to some extent, but not as much as I'd like to be. And I just felt really, really restricted by that, and I felt unhappy with my weight and unhappy with my energy levels. And so that's something that I've been working on a lot, in addition to the business mindset stuff that I do with myself. But the weight and the energy levels have been a big, big thing for me for the last 9 years. And I finally made some changes in my diet and in the ways I eat that have allowed me to start feeling amazing in terms of energy and have allowed me to start losing weight. So physically, I feel fantastic. And I think that as my body is decluttering this extra weight, I think that's allowed me to declutter things, other things that don't serve me in my life, or other things that aren't right for me in my life, namely the business. I've been wanting to write and focus on my writing, and yet I still felt like I had to kind of keep running this business full time. Again, I love doing the mindset sessions with people. I love helping people with this stuff. But that's not what I want to be doing full time. I want to be writing most of my time and on occasion helping people with mindset stuff. And I think I'm finally at the place. I mean, I am finally at the place because I completely decluttered my website of all the stuff that talked about business mindset. So I'm finally at the place where I can do that. I can let go of that. I can let go of this thing that I've been building for the last few years and just allow myself to write and to shift my focus onto a different type of work. I think one of the reasons I'm still flipping through my journal as I talk that I didn't take action and make this change earlier because I got so obsessed with the house, which I know you've heard me talk about on this podcast, so you probably know what I'm talking about. If not, it's a house that I do still want to buy in Avebury, but timing is definitely not right on it. So I got really, really obsessed with that. And I got really obsessed with manifesting the house and making it happen. And that distracted me. That was my focus for a good couple of months. And that house shows up in my journal right after all of this change stuff showed up in March and April. So I think I'm just not capable of focusing on too many things at once. Like the house was a massive, massive source of focus for me. And I think that required so much of my energy that I didn't have the energy to make big changes in my life and my business. And so I just conveniently forgot about them. Like I literally forgot about some of the stuff I journaled about in terms of making big changes in my business. I'd forgotten about them until this week when I started flipping through the last couple of journals that I've got to see just what was going on for me. And I was just absolutely shocked, especially when I found that page of all the practical action stuff I needed to do to let go of my business and make changes. So I feel like I'm rambling. I don't usually do this on the podcast. I usually like to have a really clear structure. I like to set up my bullet points and write the show notes before I get started and then kind of adapt them as I'm doing the podcast and talking about extra things and other things. And so this is actually kind of uncomfortable for me. Like on one hand, I think it's really useful for you to hear, but on the other hand, the lack of structure kind of freaks me out. So full disclosure here with how I'm feeling about this episode and how I'm feeling about things to come. I think this is also going to allow me time to focus again on my heart-centered energy work, not just having one-to-one sessions with people, but actually teaching the process, which is something that I had intended to do I had intended to start teaching workshops and training people in heart-centered energy work in fall of last year, so a year ago. That did not happen. I wasn't ready for it. I actually created a whole website on heart-centered energy work and the 3 different levels and how I was going to teach it. And I never even made the website live because I realized I wasn't ready to be doing that. And I've since gotten a very clear intuitive nudge to write a book teaching people how to use heart-centered energy work. More to use with themselves than to use as to see clients. I really do want to teach people, want to group in a workshop if they are going to be using the process with other people. But I have a very clear intuitive nudge that I need to write a book on this. So that might be the next book after the tree book. I don't know. I've got so many ideas for books that are totally unrelated to business and totally unrelated to mindset stuff. I've got a lot of books, well, not a lot of books. I've got a few books in mind that are going to be kind of like the tree book, which is kind of a channeled book. Yeah, we'll see where this goes. I've got ideas for fiction, which scares the crap out of me. There are a couple of really clear ideas that I have for fiction books, novels that, again, scare the shit out of me. They might happen next year. They might happen after that. I don't know, but I know it's something that I need to try. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you found this episode useful. I really get good feedback, like I said, on my newsletters when I open up and pour my heart out and tell you kind of some of this crap that's been going on for me in my business and life. So I decided I would give it a try on the podcast. Please let me know what you thought of this. Was this useful? Is it useful for you to hear the stuff that's going on behind the scenes for me? Is it useful for you to hear the story of how I'm making changes? Because I feel like I've been talking about big business transitions for over a year now, and it's just now really happening. I'm such an impatient person, and I love it when things happen fast like they have this week. And it's so hard for me not to beat myself up over the fact that I've been talking about making this change for a year. Or talking about making big changes for a year. So that's what it's like for me. I absolutely know I'm on the right track. I absolutely know this is what I need to be focused on. So here we are. So I don't know what I'll be talking about next week. I don't know what's up for the future of this podcast. You may have some random topics for a while as I work my way through this. But yeah, here we are. So thank you for listening. I really, really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the support I have gotten this week in terms of my change. Please drop me a line. Let me know what you thought about this. My email is holly@hollyworton.com, or you can get in touch online and let me know. And I would love for you to join me on Patreon. So if you head to patreon.com/HollyWorton, and that's patreon.com/HollyWorton, you can join me there. Membership starts at just $1 a month, and you'll get exclusive access to content I won't share anywhere else, including my Facebook group, which will be closing. I do a monthly Q&A where you can ask me pretty much anything, and I will answer your question. And all kinds of stuff that I'll be sharing in there, including done-for-you heart-centered energy work and Psych K. So, patreon.com/HollyWorton, and I would love to see you in there. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to visit hollyworton.com/273 for the show notes on this episode. Thanks again. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollyworton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.